Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody here in Fairfax? Well, it is great to see so many strong Democrats here in Virginia. I am, of course, Joaquin Castro, as Don said, and I do have a twin brother, Julian. My brother was mayor of San Antonio for 5 years and now is in the president's cabinet. And my brother had a chance when Terry McAuliffe was running for governor to come to Virginia and help him win that governor's race. Just a small little part that he did, going and doing an event over at George Mason. And I know some people saw him there and they thought that I was him. And so I used to tell people that there were two ways to tell us apart. There's a quick way and an easy way. The quick way for a lot of years is that my brother was married and I wasn't. So you could look at our ring finger and know that Julian was the married one, and he had a wife, Erica, and a beautiful daughter, Karina. If you saw the DNC convention, you saw her flipping her hair on the Jumbotron. They have now a 9-month-old son. And so he was married for a while, and then after a few years, I actually convinced somebody to marry me. And so my wife, Anna, and I have a young daughter, Andrea Elena, and we have a son on the way in February. Early February. Thank you. So if you see my brother again, you know, Don's right. There really is only one way left to tell us apart, which is I'm a lot better looking than Julian. But you know, when I come to places like Virginia, where you all have a Democratic governor and lieutenant governor and attorney general, and you have wonderful members of Congress who are Democrats, I always get a little bit envious because I love being from Texas, but Texas is still fairly Republican. And every time I think about it, I wish that politics was like sports. I wish that I could trade you Ted Cruz for Tim Kaine. That I could trade you Greg Abbott, our governor, for Terry McAuliffe, your governor. Jerry and Don, you know, Louis Gohmert for one of you guys. I know you probably wouldn't accept those trades, but I can dream at least. You know, did everybody watch the debate a few weeks ago? Yes. And you're going to watch the debate November 6th, right? Yes. Did you watch the Republican debate? Yes. What an absolutely amazing contrast between the Republican and Democratic debates. The Republican debate, you had 1 million people up there. I watched it, and it was like watching my friends in middle school fight in the cafeteria, right? And then you watch the Democratic debate, and it was about issues, it was about policy, it was about substance. And even though there were disagreements, everybody was an adult on stage. Everybody was a responsible public servant. And that's what gives me heart about the future of our country, is that as Democrats, our candidates and all of us stand for the principles and values that have made this nation great. The first one is freedom. You know, I come from what is known as Military City, USA. Once upon a time in San Antonio, we had 5 military bases. If any of you served in the Air Force or had relatives that did, you know that San Antonio, for example, does all of the Air Force basic training. So San Antonio is a community like the communities in Virginia that knows the high price of freedom. There are many parents over the years who sent their sons and daughters to faraway lands and never saw them come home. The second part is democracy. Because we are a free people, we get to elect our leaders, choose the people who represent us in government. And more than that, when we no longer agree with them, we get to kick them out of office and elect other people. And I hope that you guys are going to do that in November and flip the state Senate from Republican to Democrat. But it's the third value over which much of American politics is fought over today, and which describes the main difference between today's Democrats and today's Republicans. You see, I believe that freedom and democracy in our nation have a purpose. The purpose is to allow us to live in the preeminent nation of opportunity among the nations of the world. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. See, I believe that the beauty of this country is that over the generations, as Americans, we have built up an infrastructure of opportunity that allows each of us to pursue our American dream. Just as there's an infrastructure of roads and streets and highways that helps everybody get to where they want to go on the road, in America, there is an infrastructure of opportunity that helps each of us get to where we want to go in life. And that has to include certain things. The things that Democrats have helped build over the years. Great public schools and universities. That's why we support things like pre-K for students, fair pay for teachers. We support increasing Pell Grants and financial aid and student loans for students so they can go on to college. A strong healthcare system so that if you become sick, you don't become debilitated or pass away. And so I don't care what Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or Donald Trump or Ben Carson say, Obamacare is not going anywhere. No matter who. Because it has saved millions of lives, and it's going to continue to save millions of lives. And the third part is an economy that works, an economy that's built around well-paying jobs so that when people put in a hard day's work, they can support themselves and their family members. And as Democrats, that's why we support things like increasing the minimum wage for our workers. We also support things like pay equity for women. You know, that infrastructure of opportunity is what helped my grandmother make her way through America. My grandmother was the first in my family to come here to the United States. She came here when she was 6 years old. My grandmother's name was Victoria. She came with her younger sister, Trinidad, who was 4. And they came not because they wanted to, but because both their parents had died around the time of the Mexican Revolution. And the closest relatives that could take them in were not in Mexico, but were in San Antonio. And that's how my family ended up in San Antonio. My grandmother, like many people in her generation, never made it past elementary school. She never had a formal education. She dropped out of school to help work and support her family like others in the family did. She lived in a household at times of 8, 9, 10 people, everybody coming together to make sure that even though they didn't have very much, that everybody could survive. My grandmother, she worked as a maid, a babysitter, and a cook all of her adult life and most of her childhood to get by for herself, but also to give my mom, who was her only child, a better chance in life than she had. My mom and my dad did the same thing for me and my brother. And I share that story with you, not because I think that story is unique to my family or even to Mexican Americans. That story is common to so many of our families. And I would bet that somewhere along the line in your own family's history, there is somebody like my grandmother. Whether they came from Ireland or Germany or Poland, whether they're Asian Americans who've settled in wonderful cities across the East and West Coast or in my great state of Texas. The story of each generation of Americans doing everything that it can to help the next generation is also the story of African Americans who prevailed over slavery and Jim Crow and segregation. That is the story of America's success. And it's the reason that over the years so many people have wanted to come and be part of our nation, because it is a nation of opportunity. But you see, right now, in the coming year, this country has a choice to make about which direction we're going to take. Are we going to continue to be a nation of opportunity, special among the nations of the world? Or are we going to allow people into power in Washington and in our states who will dismantle the infrastructure of opportunity? Because Republicans see the world very differently. You know, some of them, they tell very beautiful stories about their own family members who came to this country and worked hard and did well and helped them do the same thing. But then when you ask them, when they talk about the success of this country and why their relatives came here and why other people have come here, they often mention low taxes and low regulation. Well, I'm from South Texas, and over the years, I've met a lot of immigrants. And nobody's ever told me that they came here looking for the lowest corporate tax rate. People come here because they want to be part of a system of opportunity that we have built up together. But Republicans offer us false choices. They believe that we have to choose among our values, that we have to choose between freedom and opportunity. They believe that there are only two sizes to government, either too big or non-existent. This is no longer the party of Abraham Lincoln that signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It's not even the party of Ronald Reagan who signed the largest immigration reform bill in the nation's history. This is the party of Donald Trump now. This is the party of Ted Cruz and Ben Carson. And so in the next year, Americans do have a choice to make. Are we going to support the party who passed motor voter laws, and the governor in California, Jerry Brown, who passed automatic registration? Or are we going to support the party who passes voter ID laws and does every single thing they can to keep people from voting? Are we going to support the party that is for pay equity and increasing the minimum wage? Or for the party that doesn't believe that workers deserve a wage, an increase in wage? Are we going to support the party that wants to kick millions of people off of health care? Or the party in President Obama that passed the largest increase in health care coverage for all Americans? So I know that you all have an election coming up in just a few weeks, and I hope that you all will do every single thing that you can. That you'll go block walk and phone bank and email and pick up the phone and call every single friend that you can think of, and make sure that we win back the state Senate here in Virginia. That we pick up some seats in the House of Delegates in the Assembly. And if we do our work right, and listen, I know, I agree with Jerry and Don that I know that the road to the presidency has to go through Virginia.
Yes.
That's right. And y'all know that you are front and center, that the nation is watching Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, that you all can make the difference in 2016. And if you do your work right and we do our work right, then all of us on election night, as my brother says, will be watching Fox News at around 8:30 p.m. after the polls close and everybody's sweating from working all day, and you get to the victory party and you're watching to see what happens. And Bret Baier will be on television. And next to him will be Karl Rove with all of his data and all of his numbers as their analyst. And around 8:30 or 9, Bret Baier will look over to Karl and say, "Karl, I hate to say this, but the returns from Virginia have just come in, and Democrats have made history and elected the Democratic candidate for president in 2016. Very best of luck. Please make it happen."